Here we go. This is what we've all been waiting for in the metal energy front. This is Manibridge. We are starting to drill here. I'm going to run you through some high-grade nickel. I'm James Sykes, CEO of Metal Energy. I'm very excited to finally bring this story to you guys. This is definitely a great opportunity for investors and potential investors. Manibridge mine, there it is, Thompson Nickel Belt. You can see it on the right-hand side in the yellow. That's the Thompson Nickel Belt. There's a number of mines and past producers and current deposits. Manibridge down there on the south. It's in Manitoba, which is a very safe jurisdiction. Thing to know about the Thompson Nickel Belt, though, is 6 billion pounds of nickel have been produced from it since 1961. That's a lot of nickel. It's the 5th largest global nickel mining jurisdiction in the world. So this is not a small little area to deal with. This is huge. This has global implications moving forward, especially with the advent of EVs and battery requirements. We need nickel. We need nickel. So why not go back to the Thompson Nickel Belt, which has proven to produce a lot of nickel. Manibridge, we're hoping to bring that to the forefront as well. Formerly owned by Falconbridge, mined from 1971, 1977. It produced 1.3 million tons at 2.5% nickel and 0.3% copper, down to a depth of 381. This is some extremely high grades of nickel, and having the copper byproduct too helps with the whole EV story. The great thing about Manibridge and the whole Thompson Nickel Belt as itself is it's high tenure, high grade nickel mineralization. And especially at Manibridge, we see a lot of that on strike and down below, beneath the old mine workings. There's a potential for numerous multi-ton deposits within the Manibridge project itself. We do have extremely high grade zones and are mantled by lower grade shells, but the whole thing combined creates a large tonnage opportunity. So that's what it looks like back in 1975 on the left and what it looks like today. So beneficial for exploration because there is no more infrastructure. You can easily put some drills in there. You can get some exploration done. Very nice and easy to move forward. And there's the old shaft, the concrete block. So this is a plan map with geology in the background and a shaded purple area to outline the mineralization, the nickel mineralization based on historic drilling. You can see on the bottom left slide, or bottom left side of this image, there's a lot of black mass and everything. That's the old mine workings. So that small little area is where they concentrate, and that's where they pulled out 1.3 million tons nickel. That's tiny. You can see that the extent of the entire system itself. Just some of the numbers that they mined out that were drilled and mined. I'd like to work in the GT sense, so taking your nickel grade, multiplying that by the interval, by the thickness, gives you a GT, and that's on the far right-hand side of the column. You can see the GT ranges from 30 to 75. That's pretty exciting. This is definitely high-grade nickel with some very wide intercepts. You can see in some of the mined areas, you're pumping out 45 GT, 75 GT, average of 4% nickel. This is really encouraging. And there's a lot of the stuff that they did leave underground, again, also meets some of these criteria, some of these high-grade extreme intervals that are still beneath the old mine workings. So there's a lot of potential here. Just to show you very quickly, if you can't see that purple outline, just outlined it in red, but it's huge. There's a lot of potential that still remains on strike from the old mine workings. And there's a couple asperities or little voids within the mineralization shell. One that I just showed in black line, the other one further up to the north here. And those are some of the areas that we would like to have our questions answered. You can see the blue lines on there with the green circles. Those are our planned drill holes for this winter drill program that we've just started. 3,000 meters, 9 drill holes, and the blue the green are the pierce points. All of the black dots that you see within the grade shell are the pierce points from the historic hole. So you can see there's a lot of room to really pump this thing forward. Where we have a lot of drill holes concentrated, following up on historic drilling, but also back in 2008, Crowflight Minerals drilled a hole there, basically 40 meters at 1% nickel. Again, that's the mining potential that we see this far out from the old mine workings. So nothing has really diminished. You can go further out right to the end where basically is no more exploration drilling or defined mineralization, you're still seeing high-grade nickel, over 1% nickel, over 10 meters. Maybe not quite as thick or with a concentrate or as high as a GT as what was mined, but with the nickel prices surging the way they are, this could still be very valuable. Jumping over to a long section of the mineralization, person provides me with a much better view. And again, we're looking at these areas here that look like there has been no drilling, and we want to put some drill holes in here. The reason why is simply because on another model that we use, it looks like there's high grade on either side of these areas. So if we can intersect these areas and prove the high grade is continuous, then we add volume to this whole thing. We add grade, we add volume, and this envelope gets larger. If we miss, it's not a big thing because these areas are already not included in the mineralization shells, so it doesn't really hurt us. A lot of the drilling will be focused around the middle of the grade shell. Why? Simply because it will provide us with a lot of information, geological information, to really put together a model and learn what's going on. It looks like there could be some folding in this area, and this looks like one of the most opportunistic areas to get an idea of the structure and what was happening before and after nickel mineralization. So it's also a high-grade mineralization. That was the 2008 drill hole from Crowflight. So very encouraging results, and we think that we can add some. We think we can hit some high-grade nickel within this area for sure. Moving forward, though, you can see how much room that there is that was left unmined. If we can start proving this out, this could be a potential large tonnage near surface type of deposit. So very exciting. You get a better idea of how little or how widely spaced, I guess, a lot of these black holes are, black dots, the pierce points, and how much more definition needs to go in defining this whole mineralization model. And then on the left-hand side of the deposit, it's a high grade depth at depth, and that's based on a lot of historic. You can see a little bit more concentrated drilling there, and there is a lot of high grade down there. We're going to put one hole in there, but also a couple more holes further up to the towards the surface, just trying to get an idea of any vertical type of mineralized controls. So a lot to do, only 3,000 meters, but we're trying to work towards a much larger plan. The big thing is that this is still open in all directions. There's no reason to think right now that anything has been capped, whether to the left or to the right of the image or down dip. There's still quite a bit to explore and define. I'm a nickel newbie. That's very quite readily admitted. I'm a uranium specialist, have been for the past 15 years. I joined Metal Energy as a CEO because of Manibridge. Manibridge blew me away, very excited, and I thought this is one of these projects that can be turned into a mine quite readily. And so just to give a lot of viewers who are not familiar with nickel a very quick rundown and apply it to Manibridge on why we think that not just Manibridge, but the whole Thompson nickel belt is exciting for more nickel. Great model here, very simplistic. Thompson nickel belt would fit within a rifted margin. What the heck is a rifted margin? Well, rifts are basically when the continental crust gets spread very thin, starts to move. It thins out, and then the mantle comes up, and you can kind of see the mantle upwelling here. And as that thins out, creates a valley, and sediments come in and start filling in, which then the mantle, it produces, or magma rises through the cracks that are created in these areas. And sometimes you get volcanoes that are offset from the center. You can get them all over the place, which this is very simplistic how many nickel deposits across the globe are formed. And just a little bit more of a detailed diagram. So again, we've got on the left-hand side your mantle rises, and the nickel is carried within the mantle magma. Not the sulfur though. The sulfur is in the sediments, which you can see as the orange beds here. So the nickel-rich magma rises and it cools, and then it starts spread out in a whole bunch of different ways and locations. And it just takes the path of least resistance, really. It'll follow any structural corridors or planes of weakness. And so you can see it goes up certain ways. And then at some points that it will react with the sulfide-rich sediments, and that's how you start to form these nickel sulfide deposits. At least this is one of the leading ideas for how to form nickel sulfide. So just focusing in on that black area, the nickel-rich magma rises in green. It interacts with the sulfide-rich sediments and creates nickel sulfide. And then as the magma continues on, it is depleted magma. If there are no sulfide-rich deposits that it mixes with, then the nickel is still in place and it will continue up on its merry way. However, we're in an old area. If anybody knows Manitoba, the rocks there are very old, especially up where we are. So on the southeast side of that purple line, you have Archean granites and gneisses. To the northwest of the red line in the north, you have Paleoproterozoic granites. These are billion-year-old rocks. These are granites. These are not your sediments. These are not your volcanics. So where is everything that we're looking for? Well, in the gray and yellow areas right around here, which is where you get all of the sediments. This is the location that you're looking for, these sulfide-rich sediments to mix with metavolcanics. And the Thompson nickel belt, basically where all 6 billion pounds of nickel has been mined, comes from within this black line. This is part of the Trans-Hudson orogeny. Now, I've spoken about this for Baseload Energy, which I'm also CEO in the Athabasca Basin, which is all part of the same mountain belt. If you've been out to Manitoba, you know it's flat. It's extremely flat, but that's not what it was 2 billion years ago, 2+ billion years ago. It was a mountain belt similar to the Himalayan mountains today. So basically very simplistic. India collides with the Asian plate and you create the Himalayan mountains. Same type of situation happened over here in Manitoba with plates colliding and you create. So any rifting that occurred previously would have been crushed together and metamorphosed. That's the Himalayas. That's what Manitoba and Saskatchewan used to look like, believe it or not. Huge mountain plains, but they have since eroded over billions of years of time. And we know that there is a lot of structure going on. We know that these rocks are deformed because we do see myelinite. So these are old cross sections back from the 70s on Manibridge itself. And the arrows are pointing to a certain rock type called a myelinite. And a myelinite is a highly deformed rock. It's very plastic, ductile, but these are basically your root structures of everything. And even within the Thompson nickel belt, there are a number of, there's quite a bit of evidence of brittle structure. So where myelinite is ductile, this is brittle. These are breccias. So we know that there are at least 2 phases of the structural evolution within the Thompson nickel belt, which makes sense because, again, if you're part of a mountain range, you're going to have a lot of rocks moving against each other. You're going to create a lot of structures. So we have to take this idea and we have to fit it to this model. And how do you do that? Well, you basically take what was originally laid down as horizontal, you crush and you rotate it, and that's how you metamorphose things. So what was originally flat lying has now been crushed and deformed into more of a vertical sense. But thinking about the whole Thompson nickel belt that as itself, which is over 100 kilometers long, if you have a scenario like this, then you have to apply it to the entire Thompson nickel belt. And if you assume that each one of these red locations marked with a 1 are potential deposits, then when you transpose everything and make it a little bit more vertical, then you've got a lot of different areas to explore, especially along the Thompson nickel belt. There's a lot of potential out there. So the nickel belt is right here. It's in the black. However, if we need the sulfide-rich sediments, which are in the gray and yellow areas, then how come we don't see any nickel deposits out there? We've shown that you don't need to have the magma rising up right at the rift basin. The magmas can rise up wherever there are planes of structural weakness, where these sediments are in contact with the Archean craton and the pink. That's a perfect place for a structure to form. However, why not more nickel deposits within the gray areas? I'm not entirely sure myself. It's just one of these questions that I'm just throwing out there out loud. Maybe someone down the road can answer that for me. But one of the ideas that I've got, just familiarity with structures, is that, yeah, you've got a lot of mantle source coming up in rift basins. However, you don't always need to have a rift. In extreme mountain building events, you create these very deep shear zones in which you can create mantle structures that would penetrate into the crust. And on the right-hand side, you can see how if this is if these are shear zones that the blocks are sliding against, then the shear zone can be quite extensive. You can assume that Thompson Nickel Belt being something like this. And why I think this could be an idea for the Thompson Nickel Belt is simply because it's happening in the Himalayas today. This is an image from the Himalayas. Thompson Nickel Belt was a Himalayan type of orogeny. So can this whole Thompson Nickel Belt be one of these very deep feeder fault systems that penetrate into the mantle, which is rich in nickel, creates a porosity and basically a vacuum for mantle-derived nickel-rich magmas to come up, and they would interact with the sulfides within the metasedimentary rocks and follow along these structures. Does it really matter in the end? Not entirely. There could be a little bit of exploration differences between the two models, but in the end, we are still here on Manibridge working to define mineralization within the Manibridge mine. So we've got about a kilometer of mineralization that has the potential for large tonnage, high-grade nickel, and we need to develop that. But the story for Manibridge and Metal Energy does not end there. There's also the Manibridge North deposit that was discovered back in the 70s, more recently drilled by Kanalaska Uranium Limited, who are our partners on this project. And they're the current drill operators right now. And we're hoping they're going to hit a home run with the drilling that we're currently undertaking. But Manibridge North as well, extremely exciting. This is from their 2019 drill season. This piece of core came from an interval of 6.5 meters of 2.75% nickel. It's also got copper credits and it's got cobalt credits too. That's something we don't really talk about. But that 6.5 meters at 2.75, that's basically a 15 GT. That fits within what we're seeing over at the Manibridge mine on the north end. So if we can prove that to be economic, then this starts meeting the same bills as well. High-grade nickel, you can see right here, this piece of core came from an interval that assayed 9.47% nickel, 0.2% copper, 0.12% cobalt. So it's endowed with other metals, and those byproducts, the copper and the cobalt, will add to the nickel story. These are all battery metals. This is why Manibridge is such an important project for Metal Energy, but just the potential that we can move this forward and bring it into a high demand scenario with electric vehicles requiring cobalt, requiring nickel, the whole electrification of the world requiring cobalt. This is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. Another example from Manibridge North, this came from a 70 centimeter interval, assayed 6.83% nickel. Absolutely fantastic. It's within a broader interval of 2.1 meters at 4.5% nickel, so still very high grade. It's got the copper credits, got the cobalt credits, and it's shallow. It's 133.8 meters from the surface on an angled drill hole, so that means it's even closer to the surface. High grade nickel that's close to surface, again, that's exciting. And some more high grade from the same hole, from a different interval in that hole. This one for basically 4.75 meters at 1.25% nickel. Still has copper credits, still has cobalt credits, still very shallow from surface. What I like about this image, though, again, I'm not a nickel expert, I'm not a sulfide expert, but when I look right here, if we zoom in, you can see all those little wavy line-like features. I believe this to be sulfide exsolution, which tells us something about the chemistry and the temperatures and even the pressures of formation of the nickel, that we can possibly use information like this to infer some of the processes that are going on. For this to happen has to be at a low temperature environment. So when you consider that these magmas, nickel magmas, are rising up from the mantle, which are very hot, to get to a low temperature environment to produce this, there's quite a bit going on. It has to basically freeze very quickly to create something like this. But quite exciting. It's a lot of cool textures to see. And of course, Manibridge, you can see the outline there in black. It doesn't end at Manibridge North either. There's a lot to go on at Manibridge. We've got a huge exploration potential on the eastern side of the project. You can see the background, unfortunately, is covered in a lot of lakes, but that's still exploration potential. So Manibridge Mine being that small little circle over on the left-hand side, Manibridge North, about equivalent size, they both pale in comparison to the potential that exists on the eastern corridor, which is maybe 5 times as large as what we're seeing over where we really want to put a lot of our main focus on right now. Huge potential, absolutely huge potential that exists at Manibridge. How are we going to get there? Well, this year, 2022, we've started our 3,000-meter diamond drill program, 9 drill holes, all being operated by Kanalaski Uranium. Excited to see what we get out of that. Going into Q2, Q3, we're permitting for a minimum 10,000 meters to be done this summer on Manibridge Mine exclusively, because we do want to start progressing towards an NI 43-101 resource estimate. Especially for that mine, that's where we think we will add a lot of volume and a lot of value to the company and for our shareholders. We will also be flying a project-wide airborne geophysical MT survey in about April or May, and that will help us define better targets, not only at Manibridge, I hope, but also Manibridge North in between to the north, and on the eastern corridor, the greenfield exploration potential there, hopefully defining and delineating some targets worth drilling. Going into Q4, we will assess everything that we see from Q2, Q3, and assess if we need any more diamond drilling. Well, diamond drillings for sure. We'll assess if we need any more geophysical surveying. Right now, we're cashed up to see all of this done and very excited to see that through. Going into 2023, we'll simply continue delineating Manibridge Mine. And by next year, that's when we'll probably start looking towards Manibridge North, whether we do it Q1, Q2, Q3, but we'll start getting towards Manibridge North. But the main thing has to be getting the old Manibridge Mine workings into a resource state. Can we get to that by the end of Q4 next year? I hope so. It will take a lot of drilling. You saw how much room there was to drill. But the idea is that if you look on the very last row of this table, Metal Energy Corp, right now we've got basically a market cap of 10 million. We don't have a current resource, but we know that historically they mined 1.3 million tons at 2.5% nickel. You can take that number. I know it's a historic resource, but you can get the idea that there's far more nickel mineralization beyond what was mined, quite a bit more. So can we get towards resources similar to what Class 1 nickel has, or similar to what Talon's Metals Corp has? If we can, you can see the potential for our market capitalization to increase considerably. And this is the value of investment within the company. Still so low. Share price is very low right now. This is the perfect buying opportunity into Metal Energy. And we hope that we can prove all of this right, and we can prove that Manibridge is going to be a mine of the future to meet a lot of electrical vehicle requirements and battery metal solutions. We want Manibridge to succeed, and we want our investors to succeed along with us. We are a part of the OR group of companies, 6 wonderful companies with a lot of great assets. As I mentioned, I'm CEO of Baseload Energy Uranium Exploration. We've had some great returns and great success with Baseload, looking to repeat success with Metal Energy here as well. Thank you very much. If you do want to get in contact with us, our email address is there on the bottom, info@metalenergy.ca. You can contact me directly, jsykes@orgroup.ca. You can even give me a call there. My number's on the bottom. Go to our website, go to the OR Group's website, follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn. I also highly recommend people go to the OR Group YouTube channel to check out some of the videos that are posted there. You can get a great idea of what the OR Group's about, our technical expertise, what each project and company are working on. Definitely worthwhile to spend a weekend and just go through some of those videos. Thank you very much for paying attention, for watching this video. I hope you've learned something. I hope you take away that Metal Energy is a company that is poised for extreme growth and opportunity. Look forward to talking with some of you down the road. Take care.